Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Legal and General Just Covered podcast, where we talk to advisors around their views and opinions in the intermediary space. And today is a special episode where we're talking to a Legal and General colleague.
And today we're joined by Beth. So Beth is one of our colleagues here at Legal and General who's going to share a little bit about her and her husband Pete's story. Beth, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Lovely to be here. I'm Beth, and my story is that my husband Pete had cancer and then unfortunately died last year. So we claimed on two separate policies. So I have experience of kick and also life insurance. And I'm going to talk to you today a bit about like what that's meant for me, what that's meant to Pete when we were actually, fighting the cancer and the options it gave us, but also what it's meant for my kids. So also have a little girl called Ella who's 10 and Charlie who's 8, and just talk about what that's meant for us of having insurance, the impact it's had.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I'm sure everybody listening will be really, really grateful for you, opening up to us and taking the time to kind of put us in the front kind of mindset of what actually goes on at that stage. Because I think until you're in it, you just can't understand.
You haven't got
actually.
a clue. And we've already caught up several times, haven't we, where you just really do not get it until you're in that situation. So thank you so much for coming on.
Completely. Mm-hmm. And I think why this is important, I've seen it just in my private life, like with my friends, we are all scared of like big emotions and like scary stories and stuff. And actually, the more I've spoken about it, and everyone is now getting a bit more used to, me telling them I'm crying on the kitchen floor. Like, it's everyone just gets a bit more comfortable with it. And it's real life. It's what it happens to everyone, and it's really good to be able to talk about it so you can empathize with the person that's in front of you, and it's no bad thing that you can do that.
100%. And I think it's completely right in what you say. People are really scared of those big emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's potentially the bit in conversations when, as advisors, go to talk about the events that could happen in life and the risks that you face. I guess that's big emotions, isn't it? And maybe that's where the barriers come up and people struggle. So how was that process for you? So you mentioned you had the cover in place. Mm-hmm. What was that conversation like at the time when you were taking it out?
So my husband Pete was in insurance anyway. So he was very risk adverse by nature. I was not. So he led that charge. But so an advisor spoke to him basically around the time that we bought our house. But it was the time that we bought our second house. It was after we had our daughter, because the first house and the first mortgage that we bought, we decided to not get life insurance. So it was through having the second house and having our daughter already in place. I think it probably meant a bit more that you were thinking about, what that would mean. And actually, so that advisor told us about what was available. And Pete was very much like, well, we'll cover ourselves for all the eventualities of having kick and having a life that was a decrease in product, so actually just in line with the mortgage, but then a pot of money that was then, discretionary. Mm-hmm. And actually, even though one policy was aligned with the mortgage, I haven't paid a penny off my mortgage. It's still, I've used no money for that at all whatsoever. But the advisor really helped Pete to understand what amount would be a good amount to have, because I think Pete had the understanding and the desire to get it, but didn't really know how much for how long, or how you would calculate that amount. So I think the advisor really helped on that.
And then I guess that's where you were you weren't as risk adverse as Pete. It's interesting. I've got the exact same scenario. My other half, James, wouldn't touch any insurance, and then I had to kind of coach him in doing that and kind of look at it together. So it's funny how that tends to be the way that couples potentially are. Yeah. How did your mindset change? Did it ever change, or did you always see that as a policy that was just there?
No, I kind of went with the flow. Yeah. So I was like, if that's what you want to do, then fine. And I think he might have paid for it. I don't think I actually got that overly involved. So I think I was just an informed party rather than a decision maker. Mm-hmm. So I think, he sorted it, decided that was the right thing to do. And I was like, fine, this is what we'll do. Thank God we did. But he decided that with the advisor.
Mm-hmm. And thinking about the money itself, and you mentioned not a penny of it's paid towards the mortgage, and I can just picture the mortgage advisors listening to this currently like, oh my goodness, why? Why? What was it that you found has been more important to you?
The first was an extension. So we were like, well, with the money that we've got, like, how can we make our situation better? So we had an extension. The second was holidays. I absolutely took the brief of go make memories. So we did Disneyland, we did Lapland, we did all of the really lovely family holidays that you want to have in the bag of memories. But also it meant that you had decisions that you couldn't normally make if you had them. So one of the major things it gave us in Pete's cancer care was that we could go private. And that just is because especially with the type of cancer he had lung cancer. So once you have stage 4 lung cancer, your options on NHS are quite limited, and quite early on you have to really advocate to get more treatment. But when you go to private, it's night and day experience. So where you'd be like, you have access to all of the drugs, and it's your choice through discussions about what you will go on and what treatment you'll have. And it really makes me sad to think that people can go through this journey and know that there is an option that they just can't, that will extend their life, that they can't access because, we've all seen the GoFundMe where people are desperately trying to raise money. And imagine being in the situation whereby it's literally life and death, and you're having to ask people for money to get that. It's levels of horrific that, and I'm not saying, you need this because the NHS is in a bad place or whatever else, but it's just the options and the choice that you have that are just above and beyond what you think you'll ever need. And just going into a room and being able to have a conversation without a budget or without, thinking about whether you can get someone to agree that that's what they should be giving to you is just, it's huge. And it also meant that I've had, for the last 5 years, I've had periods of time where I've barely worked. So probably over the last 5 years, I've probably had 2.5 of it off through unpaid and through sick. But it meant, again, I had the choice that I could not work because sometimes it would be pointless for work me turning up because I really wasn't focusing on what work was doing. And actually, if you're in a situation whereby you're financially dependent on that salary, that must be a level of pressure that I think would have broken me, because actually it was enough to look after Pete, to advocate for what he needed, to look after the kids. If I had to give stuff to work as well, I didn't have it. And so actually for situations whereby you don't have that choice, it's just, it must be so hard.
Yeah. Well, being ill takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because my mum was, she sadly had cancer as well, and thankfully, touch wood, she got through it. But I remember her going through radiotherapy. That was every single day. And it was like a 40-mile round trip. And that was my dad then having to take time off work to take her as well. So it was, it's not as if it's you're ill and just at home resting the whole time. There's a lot to keep you going, isn't there?
Oh, for sure. It's not just appointments. It's then if, I don't know, you end up in hospital or whatever else. It's just literally life needs to be a bit more fluid. And there would be often occasions whereby, I don't know, I wouldn't be able to do something that work wanted me to do because actually Pete needed to be taken to the Heath. And obviously that takes priority, and that's what you do. But if you... just in the taking him to appointments, as you say, is almost like a full-time job of it's not just the treatment, which again, and COVID did change things up a bit, but no one wants to be sat on their own in a chair for 8 hours. So, you kind of have to go with them and be part of it. And actually for people who have cancer and doing this themselves, if you don't have the money in place where they can choose where they're working or not, and they're trying, so there's some people that would be in the chair that were still working, and they would be trying to fit that around. And we were really lucky enough that Pete didn't work after he got diagnosed. So he got diagnosed in September 18 and had a lobe of his lung removed, and we were like, do you know what? Just concentrate on getting better. Like, and we didn't realize it was an ultimate decision then. It was kind of, it changed over time. But we were like, you don't need to work. So why? Like, why worry about whether you're well enough to work after you've had chemo? Why worry about whether you can go to that meeting? Why worry about the germs that you're exposing yourself to in the office? It's just all stress that money gives you the choice to not have to, to not have to do. You can actually just stay home and just worry about yourself. And
Yes.
it's huge. Mm-hmm. It's really huge. And there were people that were getting sick because they were having to go into offices and everything else. And yeah.
It's that perpetual negative cycle, isn't it? You're making us even more ill. It's giving that flexibility, that choice for you, isn't it? And I don't think any of us really appreciate until we've gone through it. Like you say, some of the things that you were going through, like you say, sitting with Pete all day, because obviously, you don't want to be on your own, do you? Yeah. Particularly in that situation. Yeah. I'm interested in the effects of looking after the kids and stuff like that. That flexibility, that financial flexibility that you've been given with that, how did that help you in helping the kids through everything as well, and also going through till now?
Yeah, well, they've had some great holidays. It's the first thing that they would love that they've done. But also, straight after Pete died, I wasn't really much used to anyone, and I would take the kids to school and be going home and sleeping, and that would be how I spent my day, and that's what I needed, and I absolutely couldn't have done anything else, and it's part of the process and fine. But if I wasn't able to do that, I wouldn't have been able to be there for my kids in what they needed, because I would be giving, it's amazing how much grief affects you physiologically. Like, it proper has like an actual impact on tiredness, mental cognition, your literal ability to function. I remember with Ella coming home, and she likes knitting, and she was really trying to cast on. And so I was like, well, we'll just get a YouTube video. This will be fine. I was sat there for about 20 minutes. It's like my brain cannot watch this YouTube video and work out how to put a loop of wool around a knitting needle to make you do this. I'm really sorry, love.
It's that brain fog, isn't it?
Honestly,
that
it's like
descends,
it's really it's more tangible than you would realize, that it's just not possible. And if I hadn't been able to have that time of doing nothing, my kids would have been much less supported than they were. But whereas I was able to really clearly go, right, it's me and my kids, that's all I've got to worry about. There's nothing else that I need to focus on, and that was enough. But if I had to, I don't know, worry about going to work or delivering, honestly, I wouldn't have been capable. I would not have been able to do that. And also, if that's around then, that time off is dictated by your expiration of sick pay or whatever entitlement that you have, I really struggled with those deadlines of there's a bit of an expectation, how long does getting better feels like, and what does that mean? Whereas I didn't have that. So it was up to me, and I would speak to my boss and be like, this is how it feels.
And that's a personal thing, isn't it?
For sure.
You're the person going through it.
For
Everyone
sure.
has a different situation.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. But if it's dictated then by your pay runs out in 2 months, and it almost adds pressure to the need to get better, which almost makes you worse, that you but what if I'm not? And you can go into a bit of a spiral of, how do I get better? I don't know if I'm helping myself get better. Whereas I just completely had, right, I'm off, I'm not working, it's me and my kids, we'll do this, and then the next bit will happen when the next bit happens, and then what that looks like we'll see. And I was even able to come back with a really extended return to work, and only on part pay for a period of time, because I didn't have the pressure of needing that salary to come in. So I think I did a 3-month return to work, which I absolutely needed. I would go to one meeting after working for about 5 weeks, and it was a 2-hour meeting. And at the end of it, I was like, oh, I need to have a nap. And they laughed at me. I was like, well, I'm being genuinely serious. I am going to have a nap, because this has completely used every bit of ability that I have to do. It's really weird when you were a certain way before, and then you kind of think that when you'll come back to work, that it'll all just fit in. And it in my experience, it absolutely
Is your threshold different in terms of worrying about things as well?
Yes. I care a lot less. I cared less before, and now I care a lot less. But just because I don't have the space. So I think how I describe it is like my brain is literally full. And I think because it was for so long, like it was 5 years that we were, you know, in fight or flight of what's happening, what's going on. And the last 2 years of that, basically, they thought it would happen any time. So for that length of time, your primary worry is he going to live or die? That's a really weird place for your brain to be in for so long. So I think it's just going to take a long time to actually have more space for anything else in my brain.
Regulate if you ever do. That's the thing, you don't actually know. And
absolutely.
That's where I find it interesting. So my experience as an advisor, I had so many couples say to me, "Oh, we've got sick pay, I'm fine." And like, even when I was then coaching advisors as like an area sales manager, they'd be like, "Oh, well, I've not recommended because they told me they've got 6 months full pay, 6 months half." But I'm definitely hearing from this that 6 months is not enough.
Well, but also, like, because over the 5 years, I'd used a lot of that 6 months because, you know, it's on a rolling period of whatever, it doesn't refresh every year. So I guess it depends on how long the run up to something is. But again, if you have a concern over that finite allowance that you have over whatever period, it just becomes another thing to worry about that actually you can't control. So you can't control whether you can work or not.
And we were talking about you, and you weren't the one that was ill. Yes. So I guess that's the thing. We were talking about 6 months full pay. You know, that's what we always got told. Oh, they've got 6 months full pay, 6 months half. They don't need any cover. But actually, what about their family member who then needs to take the time off to help? And that's
the thing,
a really
we
key
often
part,
forget, isn't it? And when we've spoken to advisors in training in the past and all that about what the impact on the other family members are, particularly the partner and stuff. I'm just interested in you going through that horrible journey, if you like, that horrible sort of life happening, as we've talked about it before. It's helped you to, well, you're forcibly having to reprioritize and worry about only the things that matter.
For sure.
That's the thing, and that's what I'm hearing you're coming out of that now. I'm worrying about what matters. I think the issue we obviously have and advisors have is how to sort of help customers realise that this is what I would go through in that scenario, and that's that reprioritization and what that really means to my psyche and my well-being at that point in time.
And it's like, I know we say about it, it's like, so it's one less thing to worry about, and that feels quite flippant as a like, but just genuinely, I can't imagine having to worry about money and having to, because it's not just, so there's like 3 bits, I think. There's the financial implications of him not working and having to support him and beforehand. Then it's what happens now, and I need to get into a place and need time to do it. But then there's also, for the rest of forever, I've lost half a household income. So his salary is completely gone. So it's now all on me. And again, if that was like, if I actually got concerned about, you know, what I needed to do, and if I needed to progress in my career to get to a better salary to get us back up, I just don't have that ability in me to be able to do that. And if that's on you, that you're then, you can come from a place whereby actually, if you had no cover, you'll be at your lowest financial ebb, because you will have, you know, used up all of your resources to get you to that point. And then you have this period of time that is forever, that you have to somehow have that pressure on you to do something about it when you're just in the most vulnerable place you've ever been in. And it's just like, and there's, you know, conversations where I will have, and I'm just like, I have no idea what is going on there. So let alone actually being able, and obviously this is just my experience, and there are some people that are very different, but I really keenly feel that actually if we didn't have those 2 policies in place, this would have been exponentially harder. So it's not just one less worry, it's a really big change in like pressure and requirement, and actually to give, you know, me the space I needed, to give him the space he needed, like, or the kids the space they need. Like it's huge. It's
and you think about how that, the difference between that of having or not having that in place, and the life that the kids may lead in the future.
Yeah. My kids do not understand money in any way, and because they have it, and that's another thing as well, because I can't make decisions. I spend money far too easily. Like, the kids are utterly spoiled now, and they ask for things and they get it, and it makes us all feel a bit better. And like, you know, I wouldn't be able to do that. And also, I have had so many Deliveroos over the last year.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, loads. Like, literally to the point where I know some of the names of the delivery guys that come, because I just couldn't cook.
Who's the first to suggest it, the kids or you?
A little bit of both. My daughter's obsessed with Wangamamas, but and it's become their norm now as well. That's like, and you know, it's not a great behaviour, but also I absolutely needed it, because I couldn't cook the kids' food. Like, that was just too much for me to do after existing all day and picking them up from school.
But it's all about what I'm hearing here is, you mentioned earlier, there's like choice. It's like it gave you that choice in the room with private medicals.
Yeah.
It gave you that choice as to when to go back to work. It even gives you the choice in what we would take for granted, those little small things like cooking dinner. It's actually, if you have used up all of your energy just getting through the day, you don't have to do that.
Yes.
And you can protect that energy to take into the next day for the kids.
Yeah, completely. It's literally then, like, and it's also weird that you have to consciously work out what it is you do have the energy for and what you don't have it, because whereas before you'll just do your day and then you'll be like, oh my gosh, that was a lot, or what, because when you've got a real limited amount, it's like, okay, what can I take out? And if you weren't able to make the choice, you would just be burnt out so quickly. Like, because how this works, you then make a community of people who go through like a similar experience. And I speak to like loads of other mums that their husbands have died as well through, you know, mainly cancer. And one of the ladies who is absolutely, you know, not in the same financial position as me, has had to move in with family and has, you know, like, and that just must be so much pressure when you're trying to work out yourself. Like, as I was just saying, like trying to prioritize your own thoughts. And it's really, people's expectations of you as a griever, but also still a mum, and what you're capable to do it's really weird.
And still a colleague, I guess.
Yes,
if you're
absolutely.
Trying to go back
and an
into those days at work.
And yes, absolutely. And what they've experienced of you before, and then that sets an expectation that is just, it's just not who you are now. It's just, you're a completely different version of yourself and your abilities, not for good or bad, like, but just is, you know, like, I'm probably way more efficient than I was before. But it's that other people, if you're having to rely on them, like, you know, financially or for your home or for, it's just another dynamic that is pressure that is so hard to take on board when you're just trying to work out what you want and what you're doing. It's
How have you found this sort of general response from people because of what you've been through and being aware of that?
Difficult for sure, because I say all of the things that I think quite a lot, and it's definitely been hard for people around me to then know what to say. Because also it's weird that a 41-year-old has been widowed, right? That's not normal. So actually none of us really have experience of what that is and what that looks like. And so no one really knows. And I didn't really know what I wanted, needed, what will help me. But the default position I got to quite quickly was, I'll ask. I'll just tell you, like, because I'm fairly comfortable of working it out, and it actually helped me to work out where I am and what I needed. So I was like, I will ask for childcare, for food, whatever else it is. I will ask when I need it. Or if I just need you to come around and give me a cuddle. I've also done that. I've rung people up and be like, I just need you to come round now. I can't get up off the floor. I need someone to hug me. That needs to happen. So it got to a place with me where I couldn't put expectations on other people, because through no fault of their own, everyone absolutely loves me and wants to be there for me, but no one really knows because I didn't know what I want. And so it's really hard for other people to guess what that is when you haven't been through it.
So you were trying to sort of find out for yourself,
Yes.
find yourself in a way into
Yeah.
a position that you were comfortable to start sharing, because obviously now you're quite candid with it all,
Yeah.
but I'm
Yeah.
sensing there was a point where you may not have been.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's been really helpful for them as well. I hope they would say I'm totally putting words in people's mouths, but I think it's been helpful for everyone as well to actually just be like, this is fine, this is okay. You can have these big emotions and we can have these uncomfortable conversations. And sometimes it's okay to feel helpless. And it's a really weird emotion to sit in and be okay with. But it's like, so I did feel at the beginning, I was almost giving people jobs to make them, because they were just like, I need to help you.
Them
yes,
almost,
I know,
isn't it?
absolutely. Because they were like, I need to help you because I feel so bad about your life that I need to help you. So I was almost like, it was making me go, well, what can you do? Which was, not helpful for me at the time, but from such good place and for such good intentions. But feeling helpless around someone it's awful. It's like an awful situation. But it's something I think that I've recognized and voiced to people. And it's like, yeah, that is how we feel. And that's so, like, that just has to be something that people around me feel. I do make it a joke that, it sucks to be my friend. It's literally just like, I've got all of these big emotions and I make you feel helpless.
People they're trying to help out there. It's interesting that you're going through that sort of mental journey as a friend at that point in time. You think, well, how can I help? But like you say, then you're going through the element of, well, how can they help? Do they need to help? Do they just need to be there? Do they need to do absolutely anything? And I think both roles in that particular relationship there are struggling, aren't they? And
yeah, for sure. And it's just, because no one knows what the right thing is to do.
No.
And like, so I was at points literally just like, all right, if you want to pick my kids up, yeah, like just to, and actually I was like, no, but I really like doing this. I actually quite like that reason to go out and have fresh air. And it's one of the things I talk about in therapy, because I was nervous at one point that I was becoming so selfish, because I was like, I need to work out what it is I'm doing, and I'm putting me and the kids so first because I'm confused on everything else. And so I just need to be really clear that I was getting to the point where I was concerned that I wouldn't be thinking about other people. I don't think I've got there, and I think I'm in a better place now, but it just, you reinforce so many things that it's like, and the decisions I make. And there's also a bit of, when you're grieving or when you're in grief, people think that you can't make big decisions, and that's probably not wrong, but it's really weird for me because I'm fairly impulsive, and so I wouldn't really overthink decisions as my natural character. But if me and Pete had decided to move to Australia, not many people would have gone, oh, you can't, or is that the right thing to do? They'd be like, oh, that feels big. But as a widow, if you then go, I'm moving us all to Australia, there would be so many people that are like, absolutely not. You absolutely can't do that. That's not a thing you can do, because everyone has these. And it's, again, it comes from a good place of concern that you're not making too big decisions. But it's when it's your character to just make decisions and live with them and never have had to justify them ever to anyone. It's a really weird behavior. Then I had to double down on my decisions so much to evidence them to others, and it's never something
you shouldn't have to oversell it, should you? Really?
No, absolutely.
And you're being pigeonholed in a way as vulnerable, and you are.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean you can't make your own decisions.
100%. And this is what's weird, is like both those things are true. So I was absolutely vulnerable, absolutely cognitively impaired, 100% actual fact. But I also could make decisions on the thing I wanted to make decisions on. Mm-hmm. And that's also a weird thing to get your head around, that two really opposite things can be true. Like, I think people really struggle as well, because I laugh a lot, that they really struggle that I would laugh and be sad within minutes of each other. That those emotions can both coexist. That's a thing. And it's just I don't know, because they're such big emotions, people get really like, but I'm confused by your life and what it is that you're doing. And it just, and I don't think it's a bad thing. So I think sometimes it's quite good to be confronted.
Back to people, not everyone actually experience it, do they?
Yes.
And I'd mentioned it before, the same thing happened to my sister, and she lost her husband, and you truly just don't know until you go through it. And that's why people are confused, aren't they? Where they're seeing the different types of emotions within minutes of each other because they haven't gone through it.
Yeah. And it's all normal and all fine. Of course. And it doesn't, but it's just, I don't know. Like, because I got a boyfriend within like 6 or 7 months of Pete dying. And that was a really confronting thing for a lot of people, because there was this expectation of a period of time that had arbitrarily been decided based on not a lot of information, which apparently was a year. And I was like, what happens at a year? Because I don't know what's going to happen at a year. So how do you know what's going to happen at a year? Because I'm unaware to that step change that a year will be. But for me, it was really great to have someone that, you know, you can have just nice light stuff, because my life is so heavy as a normal day to day. And why would you not want that for someone? And it's not like, it's not a big decision, it's just a decision. But because, again, going back to that vulnerable and making decisions, it was really confronting for a lot of people around me as to how I could be okay with having made that decision. And also that I could still love Pete, missing him amazingly.
That's probably still grieving as well. That's the thing, isn't it? That doesn't just switch
and it's off. Me forever.
It's not black and white, is it?
Absolutely. So I will love him for the rest of my life. I will always talk about him. He was an amazing man that, like, this is why this stuff is great, because I get the opportunity to talk about him, and like it's brilliant, because the more people I can tell about him, like, why would I not? It's lovely. So that will be my forever. I will. And he's, you know, I talk about Dad all the time with the kids. He's in our daily life. The other day, because I've touched nothing yet, because I don't want to, but his stuff is literally everywhere in the house. And the kids had to take £1 into school for their non-uniform day, and they're like, "Oh, Dad puts pounds in his shoe upstairs. He's like built this Adidas Lego shoe." And I was like, "Yeah, go and get Dad. Will give you that £1." Yeah. So it's almost a year, but they got the £1 off Dad to go in.
Would they have got £1 off Dad before, or was he always quite generous?
Yeah, no, he would. Yes, he absolutely was. Yes, yeah, more than me. So Charlie's last birthday. So Pete absolutely was just like on the spending money. I was like, "Oh, Charlie wants a pool table," and I was like, you know, get a little whatever one. Pete got a full-sized pool table that now sits in we've got 2 living rooms, luckily. It goes up, but there's a full-size bloody pool table that, like, so he was very fine.
I'm very impressed that your kids know that there's pound coins in that Lego shoe and they're still there.
Wait till he's a teenager, they'll all be around playing pool.
Well, he does, like, with his mates now, they all come over and play pool. That's what happens in our house. There's a snack cupboard and a pool table. It's literally just like it's where his mates hang out with him. But so Pete absolutely would spend the money. But it's just, he'll always be my life, because he will be in the kids' life, and it's amazing to talk about him and for other people to talk about him. And that's also something that so, like, no one has shared memory, or actually 2 people have shared memories of him on Facebook. It's only me that shares memories of him on Facebook. And I'm like, that would be lovely, because there'll be stuff that you have that I don't have, that was just, it's really nice, but there's a really weird ownership of grief that is just this thing that doesn't exist, but we've all decided exists. So I have the ability to do that, but no one else does, and it feels like a big decision for other people, whereas I'm like, why would we not share memories of people who have died? Like, that's exactly like, you know, in Mexico, it's Day of the Dead, and that's all you do is you talk about them. But I don't know if we're just a bit scared of death, and especially when people are young and being able to talk about it. But there's a real, like, I will talk about Pete in most conversations I have, and then people will join in, but very little do people, you know, go, "Oh, remember when Pete did that?" Or like, it's really, probably because they're scared I'll cry, but Oh, well.
But then, as you said, big emotions, why would that be, is that so bad if that was the
yeah.
case?
And it's lovely.
Yeah.
It's like, I will always love to talk about him.
Yeah.
Like, always. It will always be an amazing thing. There's never going to come a time where I don't want to. But yeah, there's this, like, I have his Facebook still on his phone. So, like, his phone is that my daughter's having it. So I'll, like, look at his memories. I'm like, I can't share that because that might really freak people out.
You start posting.
I'm on his Facebook. But I did have his phone, and a lot of people
then they might be really worried Beth, if you start doing that. In terms of the age, just for people listening, because some people might not have seen your claim, because obviously the full claim story is on our intranet for advisors to watch, learn about. How old was Pete? You mentioned he was young.
Just turned 40. So his birthday was on the 22nd of March, and he died on the 14th of April.
Okay.
So he was, less than 4 weeks after he turned 40.
And you said he would be now for 5 years.
Yeah.
So it would be 34,
35 when he was diagnosed, which is and it took us 2 years to get him diagnosed because he was so young and didn't smoke. So lung cancer wasn't a thing. And it took us going private to get him diagnosed. And I actually ended up diagnosing him before the doctors did, because Google is not always a bad thing. Google does help you. But he had a cough that wasn't going. And on reflection, when you look back at things, and this has also made me think about when we have expectations of people understanding their illnesses and what it means. So on paper, he had a cough. Doctors said it was fine. He then had repeated chest infections. Doctors said it was fine. And you would never write that down in, any pre-sale, conversations, underwriting, because you'd be like, I've gone to the doctors and it's fine. And it's only in hindsight, because then he had coughs, chest infections, and it became pneumonia. And even when it became pneumonia, it took us a while to go, like months. It took us months to go, oh, hang on, maybe you should be recovering from pneumonia. Like maybe we need to do something about this. And I had to say to the doctors, you need to refer us privately. And they're like, but it's pointless because it's just pneumonia.
It's pneumonia, and it's quite a common thing.
Exactly. They're going to tell you the same thing because it's just pneumonia. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do it anyway. So just sign us off. And luckily we had a guy that was like, yes, it's unlikely you've got cancer, but it's also you're a really fit 34-year-old. So it's also unlikely that this is pneumonia. And actually, the year before Pete got diagnosed, we both did the half marathon, the Cardiff half. And Pete would have had half a lung full of cancer, and he still beat me by 45 minutes to the point whereby he had to borrow someone's phone at the finish line to check I hadn't stopped something. Yeah. He had to search for me because he was like, how long have I got to wait for her to come and actually finish? So even with what he thought was pneumonia, but was actually,
so he's a really fit, healthy individual.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and that really helped him, with actually how long he survived, because they gave him 3 years, so he outlived that by another 2, and that I think his fitness helped. But it just there would on reflection you would go, hang on, you had a repetitive cough, chest infections, pneumonia, but they absolutely were all cancer, but we were always told by the doctor that they were fine, and so you wouldn't have declared that because you had gone to the doctor and you'd gone, chest infection, you had one last month, I've got another one, but that's fine, and just antibiotics for it. And I think that's an interesting insight, that when reviewing things, that actually our expectations of what people are aware of, when we think that they're doing things deliberately, on paper I can see how it absolutely looked like we would have, but it's only in hindsight that you go, of course that was when the cancer started, but at the time it was just pneumonia or chest infections. And that gave me quite an interesting insight when looking at, when we were talking about claims and misrep and whether people have declared appointments or whatever they've gone to, and the impact that it's had on the claim, that actually I think a little bit sometimes we need to be like, could they have actually known what that implication was? Because when you're in it, it's, you know, if a doctor's telling you okay, you're like, yeah, why not?
Why would you think otherwise?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in terms of the kind of impact then on looking at your kind of friend group, we've touched upon kind of family and friends. Has it changed their perspective on cover? Because I know when we spoke previously, you were like, there are still a few that don't have cover themselves, despite seeing everything.
For sure.
So.
And obviously, because of, you know, the job I do of being in life insurance, I'm like now the biggest advocate for critical illness. Like I pay £100 a month for my policy because I see the value in it so much that I'm just like, I don't understand why people close to me haven't gone, I absolutely need that. And I think it's because almost, well, that's happened now to someone, so we won't be unlucky enough.
We're not one of the statistics because it was them out of this group.
We've taken, for sure. We've taken that hit on the stats. So it's almost like not gone, oh, that can happen. It's gone, oh God, like that oh no, that won't happen to me because that happened to someone else. So it won't happen to me. But yeah, I could not talk about it more, that I'm like, guys, like, and obviously you don't want to have to say that this can happen to anyone, but it absolutely can. And, you know, you hope it doesn't, for sure. But I think the way in which we think about insurance is, you don't think, I'll pay for it just in case, and if I don't need it, thank God I don't need it. That's great, because it means I haven't got anything wrong with me, rather than I've just lost all of that money pointlessly. Like, it's I now have a different mental way of thinking about it, that I've got a kick policy that if I never claim on, brilliant. Like that, I don't ever want to claim on it because I don't want to be in this situation, but I've got it because I understand and feel the impact that it's had on my family. But it's almost seen as a waste of money if you don't ever claim on it, and so then pointless that you've made those payments. But
it's interesting, isn't it? Because you see people signing up to, like, nowadays, like mental health apps, pay monthly subscriptions to all these things. Most policies come with that now, don't they? Like, what ours at L&G comes with wellbeing support. So it is interesting that, you know, people are happy to spend all that money on these apps that they then wouldn't get a payout if anything then went seriously wrong. And actually, you've talked about, obviously, you see therapists following your grief and everything. Actually, having a policy gives you access to all of that. And it's all about that choice. And all going back to that choice,
and it's so expensive. Like, I spend £110 a month on my therapist of seeing her twice. I need to see her. Like, I'm much better for having seen her and having to see her often. But again, if you had a challenge on that money, that would absolutely be one of the first things that would go, because it is almost a luxury, right? That it's not in my life, but you can see how you'd be like, that's the thing I'll cut.
Well, it's a need, but we view it as a luxury.
Yes.
Don't we? Whereas actually you've probably really needed that from that's been really essential to you. And
oh yeah, I'm almost codependent. I really need her.
Because we don't think about it, do we? Do we think we're strong enough to deal with not having that if it's not there, so we don't miss it? Yeah. Or do we just not want to think about it? Interesting one, that, isn't it?
Yeah. Which way are you actually, thinking about words? And, you know, I think people think, hopefully I'll never find out.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that trade-off piece you were talking about, whether you view it as wasted spend or I never really want that to happen, and I'm so glad it doesn't. It's just, how can we help advisors sort of instill that thought into customers, that also can make that informed decision to make that choice on behalf of their family. I think the best solution, the utopian solution, would be to bring you in front of every client. But obviously, that's not feasible.
I don't know if I can do that.
No, I struggle.
Just make a Beth hologram that's in every office.
But it is that we need to talk about it more, though, right?
Yeah.
So what we don't talk about enough is what are all of these different, like, you know, considerations that you'll have when you actually live in it, and what it means. And that's why we need to, you know, I know we have our claims case studies, but we tend to just focus on a bit and what that means, either in the immediate or of the diagnosis or whatever it is, there is an occurrence that has happened, rather than, you know, this is, I'm talking about the last 6 years of my life, but it will be in 10 years' time, that will still be, you know, the financial impact that this has had on my life. So we never actually look at it I don't know, continuously of what
It's
it
like
evolves
it's almost
to.
like the day one piece, isn't it? What the day 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so much more to it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's not a point in time that then stops.
It's not just while you're ill.
Yes,
is it?
exactly. Yeah, whilst you're ill, once you're dead, once you have the rest of forever without that situation,
it's thinking about those big things, isn't it? Because I guess like for advisors, even using our claims videos and things, like cancer's a really big thing that, as you said, that happens to somebody else over there. That's a statistic. That's not going to be me. And it's the same with, you know, death and the financial impact, when actually all of the things that you've mentioned today are really, really important, massively important to you and your children, you know, going through this journey. But they're the things that we view as the small things, like making dinner, like getting your kids to school, like getting up, going on a family holiday. Like that's what the cover's done.
Yeah.
That ability to have that is even bigger than almost everything in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
And my mortgage, nothing.
Yeah.
So the thing that we sell it on, my mortgage is still exactly the same. But it's because I think that's an easier conversation, which I understand, because I understand it's a difficult thing to paint a picture of that is, you know, quite sad and depressing, and no one wants to put themselves in that position. But we will all die. Like we will. That is just when that happens that is a bigger impact or a lesser impact on life. So it's really weird that our starting point is, how do we talk about something that we will all do and we will all experience, but don't want to talk about. So let's talk about the mortgage instead, because that is, you know, an easier conversation. Then we don't need to talk about the actual impact on your life. It's just the impact on your finances. But then that makes it a harder engagement piece, because you can discount that quite easily, because there can always be another source of income.
Well,
or
that's
another.
where you say the sick pay comes in, or I've got benefits, or my family will step in. Whereas
yes.
they can't step in to do the meal preps, school forever. Fair enough, they've offered it for a while, but that you know, that can't be the case forever.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's also going back to, you know, when you're saying about the ability to choose. If you're reliant on everyone else, you have no choice, and you're already vulnerable. So you're making yourself more vulnerable because your dependence is increased, when actually you're at a time where you need to hanker down and be you and your unit. And it's just,
and I guess you want to protect your decisions, because if people are like, as you mentioned, people question those decisions. They're, you know, saying to you, are you sure you want to do this? It's almost like too many opinions. And if you had to lean on those, you'd maybe feel rude not listening to them.
Completely.
You know, you'd feel tied to listening to them if you were also getting financial help and everything at the same time.
I was thinking about this earlier. You were talking about worrying. I was thinking you're going to... It sounded like you end up worrying about worrying.
Yes.
If you're worrying about other things that you shouldn't be worrying about at all.
Yeah.
About the people offering help and not taking it, maybe, or leaving it too long, or whatever. But you should be just focusing on you.
Yeah, and it is. And then if it was about financial help as well, because money is really hard to talk about more than other stuff, right? So actually, if I was in a position where I needed financial help, I know I could absolutely talk to my mum and my dad and my sister and even my friends. To be fair, like, you know, I know I could, but that would be such a difficult conversation, because it'd also be admitting a level of vulnerability that you just wouldn't want to go there in your brain when you're already, you know, at a state of, you know, I don't know, being all over the place. That would just be like almost like the final straw, that you just like, at least if your money's there and you're like, whatever else is happening, we're just doing the day to day, and actually you that's what you need to be able to put your mind into, that like that day to day thing is just like, you know, that's what we need to do now, and that needs to be what my brain can focus on, because anything more than that is just not what you want to do.
And what's it? So to kind of looking at Rafa, what's your kind of thoughts on the future then? When you look ahead for yourself and the kids, what do you vision? Do you see anything now, or is it day by day?
Yeah, honestly, it's still day by day. I'm like, as long as we're all happy, and I know that sounds like such a cliche, but that is where it is. And I don't think I really have the ability to know what the rest of forever is. I'm not there. I think it's still, you know, what are we doing now? Like Ella getting into secondary school, what does that mean? You know, it's absolutely still now. I think things like, I don't think I'll ever move, because the house now means more to me than just a house. So actually, and that's another thing, that if you had to sell your house because you couldn't afford to, that would be gut-wrenching. That, you know, that's our family home that I want my kids to always be into. And never say never, who knows what will happen into the future, and I may change. But right now, I want to be in this house forever. I find it a really lovely, calm place that makes me happy. And I hope that the kids get that sense as well. And it's like, you know, that's where their dad lived and where their dad died. So like it's you know, a lot all more than you realize when someone dies. Like I was saying earlier on the train in, like beforehand, I didn't care about stuff at all whatsoever. I bin things really quickly. And now I'm not quite a hoarder, but I can't get rid of anything, because it's like there's so much sentimental value in everything that exists. And like, you know, and the house is just the biggest example of that you can be. So I think that I probably won't move. I don't think I could start again somewhere else. I'm really comfortable and happy, and I'm so lucky. I've got an amazing network of friends, and you know, like so many people around me. So I don't take that for granted. And and I think when you're going through this, it means so much to have that. Like, you know, I know we all value our friends, but when you really, really need your friends, like, you know, you understand what having good friendships is, and family as well. So I don't know what else my future will be, apart from hopefully, you know, kids that aren't messed up. But like I say to my therapist, I'm either raising really resilient kids or emotional as psychopaths. Yeah. And she thinks maybe a bit of both.
Yet to see.
Yeah. But
maybe that'll be a prequel to this in a few years' time.
How did it end up?
Yeah.
But I have got a get out of jail free card, because even if they're really messed up, it's because their dad died.
Yeah. Pete's fault. Blame Pete.
It's not my parent did. I tried.
Oh, well, what would be the one bit of advice you'd give advisors then? If we were to summarise any key messages and you had to pick one thing, what would you say to any advisor?
Make it real.
To this? Okay.
It's absolutely all about making it real. I think if you just keep it in money and mortgage and outgoings, it's a really difficult conversation to land. But if you're bringing in the emotions and what that can mean, and trying to paint a picture of what that impact can have, they can take themselves there and actually understand what it is, and also using experiences that you know of, so it's more genuine, and you know, or playing videos that we've made and the case studies, like if you don't have any yourselves, like as real as you can make it, because this isn't just selling. I genuinely believe this is a good thing for people to have, and believing in that as well, as like you're doing it for good reasons. It's not about, you know, commercial targets or whatever else. This is genuinely will help people, and it's a good thing for them to have. And you know, you're doing something good for them, like you're helping future them if they need to do it. But the only way I think you can do that is by making it real.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Beth.
No worries.
I'm sure that's been really eye-opening to a lot of advisors.
Yeah, Beth, thank you for being such an open book. Thank you for sharing your story. It's just truly been absolutely brilliant that you've been able to share it, and the highs and lows that you've been through, and the fact the way you see everything going for the rest of your life and all that, but day by day.
Yeah, day by day, for sure. Thank you.